Hey everybody, welcome to Between Drafts. We got a big one today. Nat launched first debut fiction novel, sci-fi, Husk.
Preorders are launched.
Yesterday. Launched. Preorders. You can buy it, which to me that's kind of launched.
Yeah, it launched. Yeah.
And it went really well.
It did. I feel like we've been building up to this for a lot of episodes, so it's exciting to talk about it. I also have to shout out, I should have brought his name up beforehand, because we teased it at the end of last episode, and then you remember Tuesday night, an order came through. And I had done a couple of test orders. You know, you had done a test order, Cosette had done a test order.
So Nat knew everybody who had ordered until a random Tuesday.
Yeah, until Tuesday night, and this order came through, and I texted you right away. I was like, I don't know who this is. It must have been a listener to the show. I hope they won't mind if I mention their name here. I just thought this was so cool. Bradley Peters.
Let's go.
So Bradley, if you're listening to the show, you were the first unknown person to pre-order the book,
which is a big deal.
It's super exciting. Yeah,
I gave Nat $30 for it, and that was expected.
Yes. So should we just start with what I ended up doing? Or?
I want to start with how you felt going into yesterday, and then let's get into kind of the full supply chain that you're setting up and what you did with the bundles and everything. Because you said something interesting. You said that you didn't want to have a ton of expectations going into yesterday. So I just wanted how did it go compared to what you thought? I know you said you tried not to have expectations.
Yeah,
but it's hard not to.
It's hard not to.
And just what the general feedback was and how you're feeling about it right now.
Totally.
Compared to how you were feeling about it 3 days ago.
Yeah. So for context, when I launched Crypto Confidential I put up for pre-orders in November of 23, and it wasn't coming out until July 24. That was a long window. And
how long is that?
It was like 7-8 months.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it was a long time, 8 months. And so that felt way too long because it was just so drawn out. And kind of through that whole period, I'd been hoping for more in terms of pre-orders. I think the first week I put it up, it only got a couple hundred. And then by the time it launched, there were a total of like 800 pre-orders, which was lower than I was hoping, lower than the publisher was hoping. And so there was, I think, a little bit of like psychic defense I was playing here. I didn't want to get my hopes up too much and be disappointed. And also with Crypto Confidential, it was nonfiction. I had written a lot of stuff about crypto. People had seen some of my journey. They had more reason to expect it might be an interesting book.
That's a good point. I would have thought the overlap with the audience you've built would have been higher for Crypto Confidential than Husk, and that might not be the case.
It might not be, yeah. And I was talking to Cosette about this, my wife too, where she was saying that she never pre-orders books. Most people never really pre-order
especially
books.
From a debut author.
Especially debut author or first book in a series.
Yeah.
You're usually only going to pre-order a novel if it's the second or third in a series that you've already read.
And you loved the first one.
And you loved it, exactly. And she was saying that she will sometimes pre-order nonfiction because she knows the author's content, right? Knows their Instagram, knows their blog posts, newsletter, whatever. And so it's a little bit more pre-qualified. And so I was thinking like, well, one, I don't have the publisher helping me this time.
Yeah.
They're not putting it into bookstores. They're not doing any PR around pre-orders. So I lost that advantage.
Yep.
I wasn't doing the pre-orders on Amazon.
Yep.
And we'll talk about why in a minute. And so, it's really easy to buy stuff on Amazon.
Yep.
It's so easy.
One button.
And especially for books, people expect to buy their books on Amazon.
100%.
Maybe they go to Barnes & Noble. Maybe they go to the website for their local bookstore, but they very rarely go to an individual's site to buy their books. Ryan Holiday is probably the most notable example here in nonfiction. And then in fiction, Sanderson doesn't do the main versions of his books through his own seller. He does all the special editions.
True.
So,
and a lot of that's Kickstarter, not necessarily his own site.
Exactly, yeah. But if you're going to buy one of the Cosmere novels, you're usually getting it on Amazon unless you want one of those special editions he's doing. So I had a bunch of factors working against me here, right? Like debut novel, my audience has never read any fiction from me before. doing it on my own site instead of Amazon, and not having a publisher to support me. So expectations, I was intentionally setting low. The goal, the like aspiration that I set for March was 200 pre-orders, which is a lot of pre-orders. I mean, again, in terms of like what's good for a debut novel, like one pre-order is good.
It's also, it's people keep these numbers very close to the chest.
Yeah, nobody talks about
It's
them.
very hard to find real numbers. And there's some reasons for that. If you're traditionally published, it's kind of hard to get those numbers from your publisher.
Super hard.
And if you're self-published, a lot of people don't want to share those numbers. So it's really hard to set expectations when there's very little benchmark data out there.
You only hear about Sarah J. Maas. Her most recent book had what, 100,000 pre-orders?
Maybe more.
Something
I want to
absurd.
be shocked if it was way more.
I think it was like 60,000 in the first week. Or it was something ridiculous, right? And so you hear those numbers, and then you're going to feel bad about anything, really, because we're not Sarah J. Maas yet. And so, yeah, I just set the expectations low, and honestly pretty thrilled with how it's gone the first 24 hours. Like, it just, again, nobody having read the book besides, you and Paul and a few others who could say that they liked it, right? Pre-ordering on
I was
books is a big
looking
deal.
through your comments, and I realized this for myself. I didn't even say I liked reading the book. I just said, like, let's go.
I was excited.
And I looked at it, I was like, I probably should have mentioned that it's a good book.
Well, I mean, this is like
about it.
Funny marketing brain too. When I put the launch announcement on X, I didn't say what the book was about.
Yeah.
I said it was available for pre-order, and I said if you liked these other books, you'll like this one. But I didn't give any description of the book, which is kind of maybe a silly mistake. But it does give me an opportunity to like put out another post today or tomorrow and go into a bit more of what it's about. But yeah, I mean, so it's been almost exactly 24 hours now since I launched the pre-orders.
And when you say launch the pre-orders,
yes,
that means it is available to purchase on Shopify for the pre-order coming out late May.
Yep.
And
Huskbook.com.
Huskbook.com.
Huskbook.com will take you straight to the product page.
And you put out a tweet and a newsletter.
Yes.
Is that fair? Is that everything?
That's it. Yeah. I posted it on Instagram too, but I got almost nothing from Instagram. We'll talk about that later. Instagram has turned into a weird thing for me, so we can touch on that in a bit. But yeah, really just put up the store, post it on Twitter, post it on my blog, and that was it. And yeah, so in the first 24 hours, I've gotten just over 150. So like 151, 152 units pre-ordered, units sold, and it's about $5,000 in revenue.
Let's
pretty
go.
sick.
And you checked that right before?
Checked that right before we started. Yep, just double checked it. It's about 138 on the Shopify store, and then another 15 on Amazon.
And how those people found it on Amazon? I guess they just searched Husk.
I put one link in the announcement blog post because
if you just want the ebook.
If you just want the ebook. If you know that you only want the ebook, you don't want to pay $32 for a hardcover, you just like reading digital, here's where you can get it on Amazon.
Nice.
And I wasn't going to put anything on Amazon when I was first thinking through this plan because I wanted everyone to go to my store. But I figured, two things might happen. One, there are going to be people who just want the Kindle version.
For sure.
And if I'm being candid, that's probably what I would do. If it weren't like you or somebody I know or somebody I followed for a long time who I want to support, if it just came across my feed that there was this book coming out that looked like it had interesting themes that I want to go pre-order, I'd probably go pre-order the Kindle version if I pre-order it at all.
Yeah.
Because the Kindle version's at $5.
Yeah.
And that's just a much easier investment than $32, right? So I wanted that option there for people, and because it gets it to start getting some traction in the Amazon algorithm.
On that, you said it was top 50K on Amazon Kindle?
Yeah. It's like 52,000 on, so not quite top 50K, very close. 52,000 for Kindle ebooks, which is pretty sick. And it's like top 200 for hard sci-fi, which is neat, right? Like, I mean, this is something I learned with Crypto Confidential, is the long tail of those rankings it only takes a couple sales to make a pretty significant jump. So if you're so to go from like 50K to 20K, it might just be an extra 2 or 3 sales a day.
Wow.
It's a very small number.
Yeah.
It only starts to get competitive in the top 10,000 and then super competitive in the top 100, 200. That's where you're getting into like serious numbers of books a day. But yeah, I mean, if you're selling 10 copies a day, you're probably in the top 20,000 books on Amazon, which shows you just how hard it is to
sell a book.
Yeah, to sell a book, to make a good like living in this industry.
Very competitive.
Very competitive, and there's just only so many books being sold.
Absolutely.
So that's one of those cool numbers where I say like it's top 200 hard sci-fi on Amazon right now. It sounds very impressive, and it is impressive. Like, it's cool, but it's also still not that many books being sold.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 150 copies, about 5K in revenue. We were joking last night that it would be cool if it hit 5K before the show started, and it did, I think, while we were at coffee earlier.
I love
so
that.
Just like slipped in.
Yeah.
And yeah, on the way for the 200 pre-orders in March goal. Today's what, the 15th?
I don't know.
13th, something?
So, okay, talk me through, because going on Shopify has a bunch of different cascading effects rather than Amazon.
Yes.
Amazon, you can just fulfill everything through Amazon, and there are pros and cons to that. So talk me through your decision there to go Shopify, how that lets you bundle, but then also what that means for in terms of like fulfillment. Are you going to be your own warehouse, things like that?
Yes. So there are a couple reasons I wanted to do Shopify instead of Amazon for the pre-orders. The first one is that you just can't do pre-orders for physical books on Amazon. Is
that true? That's real? That seems so silly.
There is supposedly a way you can kind of hack it through Ingram, but it's apparently pretty messy and unreliable, and Amazon might just not list it. And there are these things you have to be worried about with Amazon, where if you try to get around their rules in any way and it trips their sensors and they don't like it, your book is just gone. And it's not getting back without a Herculean effort.
Yeah, that sounds bad.
Yes. This happened to our friend. Do you know David Kadabi?
Nope.
Okay, so it happened to my friend David Kadabi. He's a self-pub nonfiction author. His best book is about like design thinking. Is that right? Yeah, I feel really bad that I can't remember the exact title. But if you search David Kadabi, you'll find it on Amazon. And he's been selling nonfiction for a while, and he recently passed 100,000 total copies sold across all his books. Super cool. And so he wrote a book on how to sell books and like what I learned from selling 100,000 self-published copies. And Amazon delisted it because apparently they have a rule about selling books, which I guess kind of makes sense because you can see how there'd be a lot of scammers in that topic or just like dishonest marketers. And so they didn't let him publish it. And he had to keep changing the title, the subtitle, the cover. He had to keep doing all this stuff and fighting with their support. I think it took him 4 months to get the book back up.
Yeah.
Nightmare. So anyway, I didn't want to try to get around their rules. So that was one factor. Another factor is with the pre-orders of the book, again, it's a big deal if somebody pre-orders. It's really cool if they do that. Most people don't do it. And so I wanted to make the pre-order copies special. And I felt like the very least I could do was sign them. But signing a bunch of books and then sending them into a warehouse and then fulfilling them through Amazon wouldn't really work, because then I would have to set up like a separate SKU on Amazon for the signed copies. And that's like 2 different products now. That's really messy. And further, to do the bundle that I decided I wanted to do, where buying the hardcover gets you not only the signed version of it, but also gets you a free copy of the audiobook and the ebook.
Yeah.
There's no way to do that through Amazon either.
Yeah.
You can't bundle the 3 of them for the price of one. And because you don't get the emails or addresses of your Amazon customers, you have no way to send them extra stuff. And again, I get why Amazon does that, right? I like that when I buy something on Amazon, that merchant can't email me or send me a ton of junk mail. It's a big plus.
Yep.
But there'd be no way for me to give bonuses to people if they pre-order on Amazon.
It's a plus as a customer on Amazon and a negative as a seller on Amazon.
Totally. So there was that factor. You make more money if you sell on your own Shopify store instead of Amazon. Amazon's taking...
What is that margin difference?
So Amazon takes, I believe, a 30% cut if you fulfill your...
30 is pretty high.
Well, yeah. So that's if you're using their printing and fulfillment, I think. It's lower if you're doing your own fulfillment, but if you're using their print on demand, then they're taking something like 30, maybe 40% of your paperback list price.
Yeah.
Which again, that's going into the shipping and the printing and all that. It's like, it kind of makes sense.
And to get into the Amazon algorithm, if you can, is
huge,
stupid valuable.
Yeah, you're going to sell a lot of books that way. It's going to get recommended on people's Kindles, right? So I'm happy to pay that fee when the time comes. But for pre-orders, it's like, okay, let's make what I can off of this, because I did invest a good amount into the production of the book. And so I need to pay that down before it starts making actual profit.
Totally.
So all those came together. And then honestly, the last factor was just, it sounded fun. I didn't have fun working with Penguin Random House to do Crypto Confidential, because it was very much their game, their rules. You're in their system, you do it their way. And I've just been a scrappy internet entrepreneur for the last 10 years. And I like doing things my own way or trying new things, even if they aren't the perfect optimal way to do it.
Yeah.
And so this experiment sounded fun. It sounded interesting. And I could tell Eric Jorgensen, author of Almanac of Naval, CEO of Scribe, I could tell he was a little unsure about this strategy. Because you don't see it very often. You don't see people pre-sell through their own site that much.
I'm trying to think. I've seen Kickstarter. I don't know if I've seen, mainly through Kickstarter is what I've seen.
Yeah. And it'll happen occasionally, but it's uncommon. And for some of the reasons you mentioned, right? Like, I am going to have this logistical challenge of getting the books to people. And you have to be pretty comfortable running a business and using Shopify and doing your own marketing and all these things, and not having Amazon to handle stuff for you.
Yep.
So there were a lot of unknowns. And again, people don't buy books on Shopify stores.
Yep.
Unless it's somebody really well known. So it could have just not sold anything. But it's going pretty well. And hopefully it will continue to go well. And I wouldn't be surprised if this turns into an interesting case study if it becomes more common for people launching fiction books who have a little bit of an audience to launch it on their own site first and then go over to Amazon later.
How are you thinking about that? Because right now you can buy the bundle or on Shopify, or you can buy the ebook on Amazon.
Right.
Will you keep the bundle available for people post? I mean, you might not have thought through all this. It's 2 months out, but I'm curious how you're thinking about it. Will the bundle be available on Shopify, and then will there be paperback on Amazon? Like, how are you thinking through that?
The bundle will go away a week before the actual publication date.
Okay.
So I'll turn that off before pub. Maybe I'll leave it up. I think I'll turn it off before pub.
It's another deadline you can use for marketing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's nice for that aspect. Yeah. And then once it's published on May 27th, I'll still have signed copies available on my site for the hardcover price, but there'll be no bundle.
Got it.
Because it's kind of an incentive for pre-ordering.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want all 3 formats for the price of the hardcover, you have 2 months to get it.
Yep.
And then it's gone.
And it's a pretty good offer, because on Amazon, that'll probably run you $50. So
yeah. I mean, if the Kindle's $5, the audiobook will probably be $15, and then, or 1 credit.
Yeah.
Right. And then the paperback will probably be $15, and the hardcover will be $30. Yeah. If you wanted hardcover Kindle audiobook, you'd be looking at $50.
Yep.
So, and it wouldn't be signed. Right.
True.
So it's a good deal in that sense. And so that is how it's going to shake out once the book is actually out. It's also doing the audiobook and the Kindle delivery is going to be a bit of a pain. And I don't want to keep doing that post-launch.
Are you just going to email people?
Yeah. So for the Kindle, I'm just going to email people an EPUB.
Yeah, with the directions. Hey, do this.
Yep. Go to send to Kindle.
Yeah.
It'll show up in your library. And that tech is actually really good now. It used to be a lot clunkier. But now when you do it, it shows up on all your Kindle devices. it's just like a normal book. It's really cool. And your progress tracks across devices too. So I'm reading one of my friend's EPUBs for his book that he's working on that I sent to Kindle for. And if I'm reading it on my Daylight or my computer or my phone, it's syncing between them. It's really neat. And so when they load the book in that way, they won't notice any difference.
So the audiobook is the tricky one?
The audiobook's the tricky one. I have two options there. One is I send everyone the audio files and then they load them onto their phone and listen to them that way.
Can they get them onto Audible?
No, they wouldn't be able to get them onto Audible. They would have to listen to it separately. But what I'm thinking I'll actually do, which I think is a cool workaround, is a private podcast feed. Because a lot of people who do paid podcasts, you get an individualized URL that you can put into your podcast player to get the paywalled podcast. And then it just shows up next to all of your other podcasts.
And the chapters will be episodes?
The chapters will be episodes, exactly. And then they don't have to, because nobody really loads music onto their phone anymore. And so that would be an unintuitive, I think, way to get it. I'll probably give people the option. They can either get the files or get the podcast feed. But for me, if an author said, here, you pay me and I'll give you a private podcast feed for the audiobook, I would do that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in my podcast feed all the time anyway. If it's right there.
Can you do it on Spotify or Apple? Where is a private podcast feed?
I believe you can add it on those. I know you can add it on other podcast players like Pocket Cast and Overcast and those things. You must be able to do it on Apple and Spotify's players because you've got people like Sam Harris who make most of their money from a private podcast feed, like millions of dollars a year from it. So I'll have to look at how him and Peter Attia are the two biggest names I know who have heavily monetized their podcast this way. So I'm going to look into how they do it exactly, but I think there'll be a cool solution kind of like that. But I don't want to keep doing that after launch because it just, there are going to be people who have a lot of trouble with loading it onto their phones. And I can't be doing tech support on that forever. It's just going to be too much of a hassle.
I really like the idea of the bundle only being available for pre-orders. I think that's a really good incentive to get pre-orders, which are notoriously hard to get.
Totally. And it's a nice detour from maybe not an optimal detour, but a nice detour from the typical way people do pre-orders where it's like one book gets you the book, 3 books gets you
XYZ,
a hangout, 10 books gets you
whatever.
Yeah. And I've never loved that strategy because nobody really wants 10 books, right? Like, what are you going to do with 10 copies of that? I guess you give them away or you put them in little libraries or something, but you're basically just paying for this other thing that the person is offering to help them game the New York Times list.
Yep.
They're not really getting like extra readers necessarily. Maybe they are. Maybe people do actually give those books away, but I just didn't feel like doing that strategy. And it's a little harder for fiction, I think, especially for a debut novel to do that strategy because, if it's a business book, then you can give your course away.
Yeah.
If people buy 3 copies, you can do a private mastermind. You can do these things related to the value the book is supposed to deliver in a businessy sense or a self-helpy sense.
Yep.
You can't do the same with fiction. But for a second or third one, I could do stuff like merch or other bonuses if you buy multiple copies. So I'll probably look at that more when I do those.
I also think that like buy 5, buy 10 for XYZ thing is probably more valuable when it's on Amazon.
Yeah.
Because then, to your point earlier, if you have 5 people buy 10 copies, 50 copies is going to move you in the rankings.
I mean, 50 copies in a day and you're in the top 1,000, I think. So
really,
it's something like that.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
Wow.
Maybe top 10,000. Definitely top 10,000.
Yeah. So I see that value more clear than driving to your own Shopify site. Then it feels a little gimmicky. On Amazon, it's also gimmicky, but maybe it's worth the gimmick.
It's helping the flywheel for sure. Yeah. So that's definitely the con of this strategy is what is the impact it's having on the Amazon flywheel.
So when you talked to Eric, what was his? It sounded like he was a little unsure. What did he want you to do?
He wasn't pushing me in one direction or the other. He was basically like, what people normally do is they just do a big launch week on Amazon. You tease it beforehand and you talk about it, but you don't get anyone to buy it until it's fully available on Amazon because you want that first week surge of sales.
You want the pop in the ranking.
You want the pop in the ranking. Exactly. You want that to be as big as possible so that, again, the flywheel gets going. People see the rankings. You're posting pictures of how it's ranking on Amazon. You're getting all of that.
Yep.
And then it starts to leak out of your audience because when you're launching anything, but especially a book, there's your audience who already knows you, who has some trust in you, and hopefully they're going to buy some number of it. But it's pretty hard to start an author career that way, because really where a book succeeds is all the people who don't know you, who just get to recommend it to them, who find it, whatnot.
Yep.
And Amazon is a good way for people to find it. I personally think that word of mouth is still the biggest factor, like more than Amazon rankings or Kindle recommendations. Obviously those help, but at the end of the day, most people buy a book because a friend recommended it to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, I don't think it matters that much to lose some of that pop to go this route, but we'll see, right? Because anybody who's buying it now isn't buying it during launch week. And so they're not helping those initial Amazon rankings. So that was, I think, one thing he was a little concerned about. The other was just logistics of fulfillment.
Yep.
Right? Because, what I'm going to do is I'll see how the pre-orders are going through March, April, May. Based off of that, I'll estimate how many copies might come through at the very end. And then I'll just be ordering a big bulk shipment of my book to my office. And then I'll be signing and printing labels.
Boxes and boom.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be a fun UPS run.
Yeah. Busy day. And I've done that before. So that's the other competitive advantage I had is I've done Shopify stuff before. I've done fulfillment. So like I know how that engine works. So I'm not figuring everything out from scratch. It's also not terribly difficult to figure out. So
yeah, Shopify is pretty great in terms of they make things as easy as they can.
Yeah, they really, really do. And I'll probably do fun things too. Like I'm going to get custom mailers designed. So I'll do like bubble mailers with kind of Husk branding.
And to your point, because you're able to do that, sign it, custom mail, whatever, and then you ship those, I don't know, let's say 3 days before the thing launches, people start getting them that, day before, day of, day late, a couple of days later, whatever. Marketing.
Yep.
Week of marketing.
I'm going to try to get it to people at least 2 or 3 days before launch.
Yeah.
So that they can start posting pictures. I'm sure some people will just read it in the first weekend.
Yeah.
It's a pretty quick read. You totally could. And then if they're actually able to give endorsements of it during launch week, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's way better than recommending a book that no one has read or enjoyed and can give an endorsement of. So I think that's going to be really nice too.
So dumb question. Will those count as like arcs or anything like that? Will people, like, let's say I get mine in 5 days before the actual launch and I've already read it, so I don't, but can I review it on Amazon or Goodreads?
Yes. So
when does that start?
So as soon as it's live, so May 27th, you'll be able to leave a review on Amazon.
Sometimes I've seen books get reviews before on like Goodreads or something. People are like, oh, I got
on Goodreads
sent
you
this
can
arc,
yes.
whatever.
On Goodreads you can review before it comes out. So that's actually a good point. Is I can start collecting those before Pub Day.
That's valuable.
That's super valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Goodreads reviews show up on Amazon now, and so what I'm going to do is when I ship them out, I'm going to include a little card with QR codes.
100%.
One to review on Amazon, one to review on Goodreads. Just make a nice ask for people to leave a review if they read it and enjoy it. And that'll hopefully drum up some initial reviews during launch week. And then I'll probably email people too. So anybody who pre-orders, right? Like I'll probably just do a personal email from my email. I'm not going to do like a ConvertKit mass
thing
marketing email, just like a personal, because I mean, again, it's like, it means a lot to me. Every single person who pre-orders, like
they're taking a chance.
They're taking a huge chance, right?
In like both in terms of whatever the money was, and all right, I'm gonna sit down for 10 hours and read this thing.
Yeah,
this dude wrote, and I've read his nonfiction, and it's good, but I've never read fiction from him.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So it legitimately, emotionally means a lot to me. Like every single person who pre-orders, And so, yeah, I'm not going to send them like a marketing spam email. I'll send them something personal. Just be like, hey, this means a lot. I'm super grateful. If you enjoy it and get a chance, reviews go a long way. It's basically the most valuable thing you can do besides recommending it to a person.
Yeah.
So,
because you are recommending it to people.
You're recommending it to everyone.
Review.
Yeah. And you can't do that with books you sell on Amazon because you don't get their emails. You don't get any way to contact anybody who buys the book on Amazon.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. So if they finish it, Amazon gives them the prompt. Sometimes it gives them the prompt in the middle of the book, which is an interesting thing that they do. But have you ever seen that?
Does Amazon do that, or does the author set that up?
No, Amazon will do it sometimes. They'll do a review prompt when you're partway through the book instead of when you finish. And Tiago Forte has written some stuff about this, about how it's an interesting metric to think of around like, is there any way you can influence when Amazon asks that? Mm-hmm. I think his finding was that you couldn't. It was just some algorithm they had. But where that question gets asked obviously affects the number of reviews you get. Right.
Absolutely. Even if you didn't be like, I know this chapter's fire, let's drop it in.
Yeah, let's drop it right after that. Yeah. Right at the, the damsel in distress is on the train tracks, right? Like, are you having fun?
Yeah.
1 to 5 stars.
Then the reader's gonna be like, click.
Click through. Like, I want to keep reading. Yeah. So that'll be super helpful as well because again, it's just like proof of, it's like social proof, right? And the number of reviews or the rating apparently doesn't matter nearly as much as the number of reviews.
Why? I
think because almost any rating is a useful signal, regardless, separate from however many reviews there are. If there are 10,000 reviews, then a lot of people read this book.
Yeah.
If there are 10,000 reviews with a 3.5 rating, that almost makes me more curious because now I'm like, oh, there's something controversial in here. Or there's something people are kind of unsure about, right? So why does it not have a perfect score? Like what's going on in this book? That might make me more curious because it's going to be different. To me, the worst rating is like 4.9.
Huh.
Because if I see a book, and it's usually a pop nonfiction book, if I see a pop nonfiction book with 10,000 reviews and a 4.9 rating, my immediate reaction is, oh, this is slop. Like, there's not something interesting enough to create controversial reviews. Like Anti-Fragile is probably still my favorite nonfiction book, and it has a 4.0 on Amazon.
Because people love it or hate it.
Yeah, it just pisses some people off. Like Atlas Shrugged, another good example, right? Like super interesting book, extremely controversial.
Gets the people going,
mm-hmm. Right? And so, raw number seems to be the most important over the actual score.
And that points to... there's definitely a correlation between number of people who have read it and number of people who have reviewed it. And then the more reviews, the better it's doing the algorithm, blah, blah, blah.
Totally. So all those benefits I think are going to be really interesting. But then, the logistical question is the interesting or the challenging one, where basically what I'll do is I'm going to get the mailers, order all the books.
Where do you order? When you say order, who sends them to you?
Oh, it's a company called Ingram Spark.
Okay.
Yep. They do print on demand.
Mm-hmm.
You can do print on demand through Amazon too, but Ingram does a bit higher quality.
Nice.
So the books will just be nicer, better if I do it through them. You have to pay a little bit more, but to me it's worth it because again, I don't want the book to look self-published.
Yeah.
The paperback will.
I saw
if you know what to look for.
I saw you got some compliments on the cover.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't see any compliments on the cover. It actually made me very self-conscious.
Oh, really? Funny.
I was like, I think the cover's good. Do people not like the cover?
I saw like 2 or 3.
Okay, cool. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. But so Ingram will do a little bit higher quality, and then I'll just have boxes of books in my office and take them out and sign them and send them off. So that'll be kind of fun. Yeah. Honestly, I had a lot of fun when I did that for Crypto Confidential.
Will you have Ingram do the hardcovers for once it's available for purchase on Amazon?
Yes. They link up directly to Amazon.
They link directly.
And so when somebody orders on Amazon, the order gets sent to Ingram. They fulfill it. I'm not in the loop at all.
Nice.
It's a great system.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for the paperback too.
Nice.
So I'll have a paperback and a hardcover at launch.
Is Amazon doing the paperback or does Ingram do the paperback as well?
Ingram will do the paperback as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So they'll do all the printing and fulfilling
Mm-hmm.
through Amazon. Amazon handles the ordering, and then they just send me checks, and Ingram sends me bills. It's a good system.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how the logistical side of it is going to work. And the number that's been in my head, we were texting about this a bit too, is Crypto Confidential pre-sold around 800 copies. And if we ignore the advance, so if we pretend that I didn't make any advance, I made about $4 per copy of the book.
Mm-hmm.
So 800 times 4, about $3,200 in pre-order profit.
Mm-hmm.
And so by fulfilling through Shopify for Husk, I'm making about $20 per book. It's a lot more, right?
Yep.
Like 5 times as much per book. So the total units I need to sell is 800 over 5, which is 160. So I'm getting close. Like I'm getting really close to the like profit to me, again, ignoring the whole advance calculation, already being higher with Husk by going this route instead of the TradPub route, which is kind of cool.
It is cool.
It's kind of neat. And the total number of copies I need to sell Scribe all in is about 28K for this production. And so if I'm making $20 per book, then that's what, 1,400 copies on my site that I would need to sell. And then on Amazon, I'll probably make closer to like $10 per, maybe more like 15 per hardcover and 7 or 8 per paperback, and then like $350 per Kindle.
And I imagine the numbers will be more skewed paperback, Kindle, audio.
Yes, I think definitely.
Yeah.
But so
the great thing about the bundle is it takes a lot of the friction with the hardcover is, man, I could just get the paperback for $10.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like, oh, well, I also get the ebook and the audio.
Totally. And there's a lot of people, myself included, who will buy a Kindle version of a book, and then if we like it, get the hardcover as the trophy.
Yeah, you're more, if you're going to put it on the bookshelf, you
totally
want to like it.
Exactly. Yeah, my bookshelf has become much more a list of books I enjoyed than a reading list, right? Which is where it used to be more of a reading list when I just default bought the physical. But now I found, especially with kids, it's just easier to be reading digital most of the time. And so, yeah, I'll get the Kindle first. I know some people just buy the audiobook, and then if they like the audiobook, they'll get the hardcover, the paperback as the trophy. And yeah, so have it all in one like this. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah.
Did any kind of feedback or anything else just stand out to you yesterday going in today? Anything that really surprised you other than just total sales?
Yeah, total sales has been a pleasant surprise. A decent number of people in Europe pre-ordered it, even though the shipping is $20.
Wow.
And so
that's great.
Yeah, there's probably a dozen orders from people in the UK or Germany or France or whatever who are willing to pay the international shipping to get the pre-order. So that was really neat.
Very cool.
I got a few emails from people in India.
Mm-hmm.
People in India buy a lot of books.
Yeah.
And they wanted to pre-order it, but I didn't include shipping to India because that's a whole nightmare. I don't know if you've ever tried to ship something to India.
Nope.
It's awful. I don't recommend it. And so I was telling them, like, I'm sorry, I'm not doing fulfillment to India. Amazon will do it when I launch.
You can can you point those people to Amazon and say, hey, I can't do shipping to India. I'm sure those people also know that it's a mess to make that happen, but at least you can say, hey, if you want the ebook, it's on Amazon. Boom.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying, is like the ebook's on Amazon if you want to pre-order that. Otherwise, wait until the physical is available there, which I think it will be at launch. It's possible it won't. I have to double check on that. But either way, the digital definitely will. And then if I end up getting international rights deals or something, India would probably be one of the first places we target. Although you don't make much per book that you sell in India. You make like 5 cents.
Yeah. No.
But it's word of mouth.
Yep.
And a lot of the booktubers or like bookstagrammers and book talkers are Indian.
Nice.
Yeah. I think because the economics of doing it work a lot better for them, because they can build a business charging $100 per book review and per reel and whatever. But if you're living in the US, let alone in a major city, you can't get a livable wage charging that amount for a book review. And so I think the economics just work better if you're not in the US for doing that. So yeah, cool to tap into that when I get there.
It's pretty sweet.
It is pretty sweet. It's exciting, man. It's been cool to see it come through. Cool to see like the Shopify notifications pop up on my phone.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I really missed this last time.
So I think this is interesting because I think a lot of authors, what I see online, try to build audiences of other authors.
Yeah.
And I don't think you definitely haven't done that because you've only been writing fiction for, let's call it a year and a half.
Year and a half, yeah.
And you'll talk about it online, but not really. It's not 95% of what you're talking about. And I think that's a super interesting thing. I would argue you've built an audience of potential readers, not other authors. And it's not going to be 100% of your audience that's going to buy this thing, but just
some
going to be some percentage of people who read sci-fi who are also interested in crypto and psychology and marketing and all this other stuff you talk about.
Yeah. Well, and I think too with sci-fi in particular, it is the one genre that the techie nonfiction guys will read. Yeah, they will try. They'll pick up Three Body Problem or The Martian or Dark Matter or one of those books, and that'll be their like taste of fiction. And so I feel like I have a little bit of an interesting wedge there in that I can't think of somebody else who was like of that world, working in tech, crypto, or any of these things, who pivoted to writing sci-fi.
Nobody pops out.
Yeah, nobody really pops out. Apparently that's how Andy Weir started, but that was 20 years ago.
That's so cool.
Yeah, he was like an early employee at AOL.
Oh.
And so when they IPO'd, he like got a nice payday, and that's what allowed him to like go into fiction writing.
That's cool.
Yeah. But obviously that was long before Twitter or like these, the social networks and stuff that we have now.
Immortals, not sci-fi, but fiction, was, I believe, either investment banking or VC before he wrote Gentleman in Moscow.
Oh, cool. I know Islington, The Will of the Many, ran a tech startup.
No way. I didn't know that.
Was in tech. Yeah. Okay. Before he switched to fiction. I don't know if he got an exit or what exactly like happened with that, but if you read his bio in the back of Will of the Many, it mentions that. So, which, we've talked about this theme of like making it as an author, and to some extent, maybe one of the best ways to do it is to like get a little bit of a financial cushion elsewhere first to give you the 5 or however many years it's going to take for the writing to actually take off. Because if I needed this to pay all of my bills immediately, that would be a very different level of stress.
That would be super stressful.
Yeah. And I probably just like wouldn't recommend that to anyone unless they can land a really big, big 5 advance for their debut novel. That's almost the only way I think it works out. It's better to either like keep your day job and do it on the side and try to fit it in until it hopefully takes off. But leaving a steady income to try to make it as an author would definitely be a very risky thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything we haven't talked about that we should with this? What's your next 2-3 weeks look like in terms of promoting?
Yeah, so I think I'm probably just going to keep talking about how the pre-orders are going because, again, like my audience is not really authors, and it's not really sci-fi readers either. It's people who are interested in stuff that I'm interested in. A lot of them are interested in business and entrepreneurship. A lot of them are interested in tech. Some of them are there for the like philosophical essays. And so I think I'm just going to keep writing my normal stuff and weave the book into it. So I was telling you before, the post that I'm working on for probably early next week is how I'm outlining my novella and Husk 2.
Yep.
And so that's obviously going to have a lot of mentions of Husk and like featuring the pre-orders. I'll probably do another post in a week on how the first week of pre-orders have gone.
Yep.
Because people are very interested in numbers, right?
Yes,
like we talked about at the
beginning.
beginning.
Love numbers.
Nobody talks about them.
Yep.
and people love to see those breakdowns. Paul Millard has said that his posts on that are often some of his best performing pieces. So I'll do some articles on that. The one, I alluded to this earlier. The one nut I have to figure out is Instagram, because
yeah, let's talk about that.
Yes. So I have this funny thing with Instagram where when I started doing it 2 years ago, I was basically just algorithm hacking.
You blitzscaled,
got a crazy number of followers, and they're just like dead.
If I remember correctly, the original thought was, 9-10 months out from Crypto Confidential, I need to start this thing.
Yeah.
And then like 3 months in, you were like 100,000 followers popping off.
Yeah.
And you were kind of like, I kind of hate this.
Yeah, I was like,
I don't know if I can do this for another 6-7 months to promote Crypto Confidential.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of work with unclear ROI, and but it was also crazy where there was 1 or 2 months in there where I had over 10 million views, and people were like recognizing me at coffee and stuff. And I was like, this is wild. Did not expect this. And then I just didn't do anything on Instagram for a year.
Literally did not.
Literally like not one post.
Story, nothing.
Like nothing.
Yeah.
And so now that I am posting again, the engagement is just zero.
Yeah.
Like no engagement.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because one, nobody was following me for me. They were following me because I was the guy doing nonfiction book lists and nonfiction book recs, and had figured out how to game the algorithm and could like get into those feeds and get a ton of followers, but they weren't like very personal followers. And so some of them are still engaging right now that I'm posting again, but all of my engagement is down like 90-95% from that period. And it almost looks bad.
It's almost the opposite of what you've done on Twitter.
Yes. Where I have great engagement and it's very personal following with a lower follower count than many people, but they're super engaged. And so I think I just got to keep posting on Instagram, and like whoever I hit, great. I could do more like algorithm gaming in the sci-fi community and like doing book lists there. I'll probably do some of that because it's like free option.
And you can plop, the pre-order page in your bio.
Yeah, I've got that, and I'll share stuff on Instagram too as it's going. But it is a little demoralizing, right, to just see that how quickly that audience died off. But it's a good push to, like keep posting stuff, like don't stop, because you do that. Those audiences go away quite quickly. Yeah. And so just figuring out how to have a better balance there now than I did before.
I have a tendency to want to just disappear from Twitter for 3 months and just work on book, newsletter. I just like longer form writing better.
Same.
But there's so much value in just, post a couple times a week just to stay not in the algorithm, but in people's, if you assume that 95% of people who follow you are actually people, not bots, then you just want to show up in their feed every once in a while. Yeah. It matters whether they actually engage with the post or not or whatever, but it matters to just literally show up in the feed.
Yeah. There are so many people making content these days that you do kind of have to stay top of mind, or else you'll be replaced in somebody's list of people they pay attention to shockingly quickly. The flip side of that is that if you do make very good things, especially long form things, there is some durability in people's minds. I was talking about this a little bit on Substack this week, where I'll occasionally talk to people who read an article that I wrote 5 years ago that they still remember. And that does not happen on Twitter or Instagram.
Oh, I get way more interesting conversations from newsletter people, either, whether they reply to an email or in the comments or DMs or whatever, than just people who follow for the short form stuff.
Yeah. And so that's the thing that I regret falling off on the most is the blog. But it's at a much better cadence now.
Yeah, I feel like you're posting pretty regularly.
Yeah, I've gotten better about it. And if I look at the refers for the pre-orders, it's like 2/3 Substack, 1/3 Twitter.
Okay, talked about that. You can see all that with Shopify. You can see the analytics, and on Amazon it's like an opaque
no
wall.
visibility
You have
at
no
all.
idea.
Yeah, so on Shopify, I can see exactly where many visitors are coming from. Not all of them. A decent number are unattributed because they're probably using Brave or like a ad blocker that prevents you from tracking them. But yeah, I can see how many people came from Substack to buy, how many came from Twitter, how many came from Instagram. If somebody does a blog post about it, then I'll know. I bet if I go look now, there'll be at least 1 or 2 from LinkedIn from your post, right? So it's cool to see that data.
Yep. We'll never speak bad of LinkedIn again.
Yeah, exactly. I'll never speak bad of LinkedIn.
I'm like full bore, like pushing LinkedIn now.
I know. Yeah. Well, now you got your editing connection from it.
We'll talk about that sometime.
Yeah, we'll talk about that maybe next time. But yeah, so that level of data is really cool too.
Yeah, especially you have a background as a marketer.
Yeah.
You know what to do with that data.
Oh, the last thing that I get going this way versus sending everyone to Amazon is I can pixel them. So
if you ever want to retarget with ads or something.
Exactly. So I have a Facebook, a Twitter, and a Google Pixel on the store on Shopify. And so if I want to try running ads to remind people to pre-order, I can do that. And I think when I would do it would be the week before I close them.
The bundle.
And then maybe launch week.
Yeah.
So I could do a last chance ad.
The bundle.
For the bundle.
Yep.
And then the week it comes out, I can do ads that just send people to Amazon and kind of like take the L on the spend there, because I won't be able to track if it's converting or not, but it'll be driving more eyeballs. And again, if you're just sending people to Amazon, you're not getting the ability to retarget them with ads, which can be pretty useful. And I've heard of it working for other authors, and I feel like I'm scrappy enough with those kinds of things that I'd be able to figure it out too.
And Facebook, you can do the lookalike audience things with that list.
Yes. Yeah. Find people like this and send a different ad set to them that's a little colder. But that'll be fun to play with too. There's just a lot more levers I get to pull going this way than being with PRH. And so it's fun to get to experiment a little bit more than I did last time.
Absolutely.
All right. Should we wrap it up there?
Yeah.
We're at time.
Anybody has questions for Nat? We tried to cover everything. I think we did a good job. But if you have questions for Nat about the launch or anything else that he's doing, something we went a little shallow on, you want us to go deeper, hit us up, probably on Twitter.
Yeah.
NathanBall27.
Nat Eliason. Or you can email us betweendraftspod@gmail.com. I should check that email. I haven't checked it.
Yeah. And we'll get to those questions, because this was pretty action-packed, and I imagine something people are quite...
Definitely be some good follow-ups.
Yeah.
So yeah, send us any questions you have, and we'll keep updating as it's going too. Should be an interesting couple of months. And yeah, huskbook.com if you want to pre-order it.
Let's go.
All right. Subscribe, follow us, send us to a friend who is also a writer or interested in writing related things. And we'll see you next week.